One developing story, Omar, that we're keeping a close eye on. The Elections Canada website appearing to be down for some Canadians, for many right now going on the website. This is what they're seeing. We actually experienced it here in our breaking news center as well, though we were able to get on another computer, though some people taking to social media tonight, sending out tweets.
Now, I don't want to speak too much on Canada's elections because obviously I'm not in Canada, never been, and sometimes I take offense to not all people that are outside the country talking about our elections, but just the grifters that come over here. They have nothing. They have no clue of what it is to be in America, but they have a lot of opinions and a lot of reposts to talk about on social media. And you guys probably know who I'm talking about, a very famous grifter online. But I would say what happened over in Canada is probably the best advertisement for 100% paper ballots and watermarked paper ballots. So in the event of electronic failures, hacks, or just, standard glitches, we don't need to rely on that. And also, nobody can question the votes because you can always recount a paper watermarked ballot. But the crazy thing is, over in Canada, the Liberal Party, even after the catastrophe that was Prime Minister Trudeau and all the failures they have in their country, they're going to have not only a Liberal Prime Minister, but a Liberal majority in Parliament, or their version of Congress. But you had the guy, Pierre Poilievre, the guy that everybody thought was going to be like the Trump of Canada, who pretty much, everybody thought that he had it in the bag. But then all of a sudden, yesterday during the elections, actually before that, he started going against Trump. You see this. President Trump, stay out of our election. The only people who will decide the future of Canada are Canadians at the ballot box. Canada will always be proud, sovereign, and independent. We'll never be the 51st state. Today, Canadians vote for change so we can strengthen our country. No. They voted for more of the same bullshit. To stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to the America in position of strength. And then, not only did Pierre Poilievre lose the election for Prime Minister, he lost his own seat in Parliament, which I believe is like their version of Congress. So he's not even in office anymore because back in December 2024, he had all this steam. He was going to be the next prime minister because Trudeau was such a travesty.
The results are in on the prime minister's radical liberalization of hard drugs. He teamed up.
They're talking about the movement of fentanyl from Canada into America.
Up with the BC NDP to decriminalize fentanyl, crack, and heroin. He lowered jail sentences for mass producers of deadly fentanyl. And 80% of the fentanyl made in Canada is done so using ingredients that are not even regulated, but come right into our country where they're cooked into that poison, now threatening our trade relationship with the U.S. Will he reverse his radical liberal drug agenda to save lives and jobs?
He's not there to do the work of delivering based on science, based on compassion, based on a public health approach.
Compassion of the drug dealers.
On dealing with the toxic drug epidemic. He is instead continuing to try to score cheap political points on the backs of the most vulnerable. That's not serious. That's not responsible.
What is not responsible?
Okay, so he was big on crime and drugs, but then once Trump started saying it, he stopped because he had to go against Donald Trump because for whatever reason he wanted to be a moderate conservative and not a MAGA conservative, but just a conservative that supports Trump. And I think the chat box froze again. Hold on. But the idea is, I really think that all these politicians that seem, conservative politicians that seem strong, that had a good chance of getting in office, the second they turn against Donald Trump is the second that their entire campaign derails. Because Pierre Poilievre, to me, is the exact same thing that happened to Governor Ron DeSantis, where he had a great run, at least in my opinion. He had a great chance to become president if Donald Trump wasn't running. But the second that Donald Trump got steam, he started to attack Trump and try to distance himself from Trump. And that's when his election disintegrated. And that's when, the only thing I remember DeSantis from is bad appearances at debates and boots. This is somebody that thought that I championed DeSantis and getting rid of the lockdowns, because without DeSantis having the balls to not lock down Florida, it gave places like Texas, because remember, I like Governor Greg Abbott, but he was jailing I believe it was gym owners that were staying open during the pandemic. It was because DeSantis opened up his state there weren't mass die-offs because of the cove that made the other states open up as well. DeSantis was a good presidential candidate if he waited his turn, but he won against Donald Trump, and now he's just known as Boots. Pierre Poilievre was probably going to be the prime minister, but then he won against Trump, and it just seems like they try to align themselves with the anti-Trump people, but why would you do that? Like, it's crazy that Canada had an anti-Trump sentiment during their elections. Like, they voted based on who was going to fight Trump. Pierre Poilievre thought he was going to be able to harness that, and then now he's not even in their parliament anymore.
I think who I voted for would be the best to take care of Trump. Because Trump
Ottawa
is, I'm sorry to say, an ass, and he shouldn't even be president of the United States.
Oh, thank you, Canada, for telling me who should be in office here.
But because he is, we need a strong person so that we could stand strong. I think
a strong person, Pierre. You bounce back and forth, and Canada gets what they voted for. I mean, Pierre gets what he stood for, where if he wasn't willing to say, hey, look, maybe we need someone to put Canada first. Maybe Trump is not necessarily in the best interest to become the 51st state, but directly going against him pretty much sunk his political ambitions, and also probably pretty much sunk his political career, because now he's no longer even a prime minister. I'm not even prime minister. He's not the prime minister, but he's no longer in parliament. Yeah, he opposed and lost. And Donald Trump was Mark Carney's fear-mongering card. He's the only thing that liberals have. Like, even liberals not in America, they don't have a platform. It's just anti-Trump, because the media's done such a good job at villainizing him that now that's all you have to do is say, oh, I'm not going to provide anything to enrich your life. I'm just going to not be Donald Trump.